Having spent nearly 20 years riding around the racecourses of Great Britain, I've seen firsthand how each of the 40 national hunt tracks are both respected and renowned for their individual features, from the unique figure of 8 at Fontwell to Trappy Trevor at Taunton. Each one is equally dangerous, infamous and spectacular. Throughout this series, we'll be visiting some of Britain's most idiosyncratic tracks and trying to pinpoint the areas that can be the difference between triumph and disaster. These are At the Races tricky tracks. Behind me is one of the toughest climbs in British racing, a hill so severe horses literally grind to a halt as they try and jump the last 2 fences before that lung-bursting run to the finish line. This is the home straight at Towcester, where staying really is the name of the game.
But Zaffarano continues to run on strongly and is just going to nail Torrencell.
The Scudamore drive, he's 2 lengths clear and shaking hands. What a plucky victory. Lasted home to win it by a length. And Tony McCoy now launching a tremendous attack on the outside. He's done it!
Probably the toughest track in the country, I always think, here in Carlisle, that big uphill finish. You see plenty of horses going very well, going to the third last hurdle or the third last fence, and then the hill really begins to take its toll there. It's a place for tough horses, and Grandad always said that the Towcester form tends to hold up more here than anywhere else. You get horses that really become course specialists here, and can't perform anywhere else. So it's a real specialist course.
What sort of horse do you need to win round Towcester?
Good staying type, basically. Whatever trip you're running over, you probably need to be able to see out further. If you're running over 2 miles, you probably need to be able to get 2.5. 2.5, you need to be able to get 3. It's a proper staying track, real good galloping track, and it can be hard work.
When you think of Towcester, you think of 3-mile staying chases. This is the 3-mile start at Towcester. Normally, the first fence in a 3-mile race is pretty simple. At Towcester, the first fence in the 3-mile is far from simple.
At the back of the field early on as they jump the first, which comes up pretty quickly. Overton and down is in and over.
When you get down here, you can see why. I used to call this fence Beechers because there's quite a drop to the landing side and it normally catches 1 or 2 horses out.
I think as I've got older, I found it a lot easier to ride. I know when I first started, it was a bit of a bogey fence to begin with. But as I've got older, I don't know what it is. It's just there's the drop the other side of it as well. It can be quite a tricky fence, but touch wood, it seems to have got easier as I've got older.
It's not one we like. The old 0 to 90, 0 to 100 handicap chases where there's 16 runners or so, everything wants to be handy. I mean, I call it the ski jump. I know you call it Beecher's Brook. It's not a nice first fence.
The first in the 3 miles race, if you've got a ball jumper going down to the first fence and he just happens to stand off too far, you have a tendency, especially at this time of year when it's a little bit greasy on top, they can slip on landing and can be overballed at it. So ideally you'd like to go and pop that.
Now, you'd think when you've jumped all the obstacles, you're almost home and dry. But that's not the case here at Towcester. Horses are herd animals. They know this is where they've come out onto the track from. All the rest of the horses are in there waiting for them. The finishing post is up there, but they don't know where the finishing line is. And occasionally, you'll see the odd one jinking in here.
Horses are very intelligent animals and they always know where they've come out on the track, and if they are getting very tired, you'll find that when they do start to wander about, they'll lean across to this side if the jockey's been going up the middle of the track.
It's probably a combination of being a little bit tired. Oh, I know where I am, that's where I came from, and just they see the gate, they see the gap, and they'll have a little duck out. You've got to be prepared for things like that.
Sometimes the horses go past it and think, oh, I remember that, I mean, that's where I got to go home, and you just got to be aware of it.
And what about the best way to ride the track? Are you better dropping in, sitting behind the leaders, up at the pace?
It's very, very important. The third last jump here, whether it's over hurdles or over fences, is the most important. You miss the third last hurdle or the last open ditch, the third last, you stop all momentum before going up the hill, and it suddenly seems a long, long, long way from there.
Ideally, you'd like to get a breather into them, get a toe from the open ditch up to the second last, because as everybody knows at Towcester, from the second last home, it's a real solid pull on real soft ground, which it often is here in the winter.
Down at the second last, what is the best way to ride Towcester? When I was riding, it was a question I asked myself 100 times. I never really came up with the right answer. If you try and drop in too much when the ground is soft here, if you try and creep and make any ground up that punishing hill, your petrol gauge will run straight to empty. Historically, if you're trying to find winners here, you've got to have horses when the ground is soft that have absolutely no stamina doubts. And history will tell you, look for horses that race either up at the pace or just behind the leaders.